I am so excited to have such an incredible human being here with me. She is a heart-led leader, empowering women to really take their business to the next level. She's got a personal, beautiful place in my heart because she was my business coach when I produced and created the Awaken the Goddess Within Summit, which was my very first summit. And what I love about Alison Callan is that when you work with her as a coach, you have someone in your court. And I had been a one woman show my whole entire life, and I had never had any support. And so when I stepped into her sacred container, I felt held, seen, supported, and oh, I'm going to tear up, Allison, but it helped me so much. And so I'm so grateful to Allison. She's a heart-led conscious creation business coach that helps people like me that are here to change the world, but don't exactly know how all the, moving parts work, the tech and the how to do all the things that we want to do in the world. And Allison is that person that can walk you through it on your journey of bringing your gifts to the world. So it's so great to have you here, Allison.
Oh, Schamet, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be doing this again with you. And that was such a beautiful introduction. I did get quite moved by that, thinking back all those years ago as to, who we were when you began and, the ripples that came of that out into the world. And it was truly beautiful to watch you unfold in that magical space. And look at you now. My goodness. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's such an honor to have you here with me again. We had so much fun last time, like
Oh my goodness.
just like the energy, vibing of conscious
Absolutely.
creation, heart-led leaders in the space. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And the enormity of it, the message, the people, the connections. It's just yeah, it's just in order to hold that much space, it's truly a gift. Yeah, well done.
It is. Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being a lighthouse to me when I needed the illumination of how to navigate the tech world to
Oh my
bring my
goodness.
vision into the world. And you did that so elegantly and beautifully. And yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. A little bit of grounding goes a long way, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it really does.
It's one thing to be a visionary, and have all these ideas, but then to put them into a way, a vehicle that can then share them with the world. And that's what you do. So thank you for the work that you do. It's very, very important.
It
That is
is.
the manifestation of the visionary dreamers and how
Abs-
we're going to bring it to the people. So,
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
your work is very needed in the world. So, my first question for you today, Allison, is what does leadership mean to you?
Oh, I think leadership has evolved as I've evolved. And I think leadership now is all about really choosing me and owning me and who I am and understanding myself. It's about expressing who I am and really embodying that truth. But I think that comes from knowing who you are. And I think there's a difference between, leadership that is external when somebody is observing somebody else and says, hey, they're a leader. It's because they have something that has grasped your attention and makes you want to notice and to follow and to inquire and to get curious, as opposed to leadership internally when you flip that switch on your own self and your thoughts and your emotions and your processes. And, that for me, I think true leadership is really that personal space now in terms of owning that and owning who you are and leading from that place. It's not about other people anymore. It's just about your own authentic journey. Like you were saying a moment ago about, wanting to bring your vision into the world and creating that vehicle of how you're going to do that with purest intentions. Whether, you know, you're not looking around for others to be following you, you're just so focused on what it is that you're trying to do and why that's so important to you that, you know, there's a purity there. And I think, you know, leadership is starting to be redefined in that way now, and people are appreciating that a lot more.
I love that. I
Mm.
love what you just said, you know, about how a true heart-led leader is just doing it because they know they need to do it. Like Martin Luther
Mm.
King, right? And him having his dream, he wasn't trying to get followers. He was
Yeah,
like trying to change the world.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you
Mm,
change the world one person at a time, you know, and it's, you know, leadership and legacy, I think, intertwine in that sense because, you know, you're mentioning Martin Luther King. Did he really think that his one speech was going to be foretold, you know, decades and decades into the future, long after he'd said it? And I think, you know, in the vehicles like with this summit, you know, this is going to live on for potentially generations, books that people are writing, Oracle decks, you know, all of the work that we're all creating now has that legacy aspect to it from, you know, born from this moment of leadership, of what we're trying to create. But it doesn't mean that it has an expiration date either. You know, it reaches the right people at the right time in the right moment for what it is that they are trying to change or navigate or be open to curiosity with.
I love that so much. So true. I love that answer. Oh, I love the way you think. You're a new thought leader. That's why I have you in
Thank
my
you.
circle and on my summit.
I love it too. I love being asked these really deep, intimate questions. You know, it makes such a difference to having a conversation and, you know, getting your perspective changed and widened. That's how we all grow, right? By having awareness of other people's thought processes and why they think that way and what that then triggers for us. And, you know, communication is only available to a person from how they can hear it and how they can understand it through their own operating systems. So, you know, it meets people exactly where they're at, sometimes in a profound way, and sometimes it will percolate. You know, but things that are meant to be left and resurfaced certainly will be. So, yeah, this is
True.
fun.
Yes, it is. True. And do you consider yourself a leader?
Oh, that's such a difficult question. And the reason I say it's a difficult question because it's very confronting, right? It is so confronting because absolutely, I'm a leader. And the reason I say that with such conviction is because I walk my talk. And it's taken a long time for me to be able to do that. Um, but I'm a leader of self. I am on this journey of constant evolution and self-discovery. You know, it's a never-ending journey of which I love. Um, but I don't think of leadership in terms of a title or kind of that external validation. It's not a hierarchical um, badge of honor in the sense that a lot of the word leadership would make people think initially, I think. And that's what we're doing here today is, you know, we're adapting and evolving that terminology. Um, but, you know, I lead by being fully myself and living in alignment to my values, knowing what they are, you know, and holding space for others then to step into their greatness. And I think we're all on our own leadership journey. So I think we are all leaders. In fact, I know we all are. Sometimes we don't own that and take personal responsibility for it the way that we should. But I do think that is a learning journey, you know. And if we take this into a very simple setting of workplace culture in organizations, you know, everyone is a leader in their own right in those organizations. And everybody has a voice and a contribution. And with their voice and their contribution, it is a cog in the system that makes the organization work and contributes to the culture and such like. And so whether it is a beautiful place to work or somewhat of a toxic place to work, everyone is contributing to that because they're either being true to themselves and walking in alignment with their values, or they're not, which is why some organizations are great for some people and not for others, because everybody has their own line to walk. And we all need to find those people that we can journey alongside in harmony with or in friction with, but with growth in mind, you know? And so, yeah. So yes, I am a leader. With my definition of what leadership is, and
Mm,
I think it's about helping others then navigate their own path, and clearing their barriers out and stopping them from feeling stuck and encouraging them to trust themselves. You alluded to my work earlier, and, I started that because I had my kids and I looked at them and I said to myself, matter of factly, the amount of unconditional love I had was so great, and it's immense when you feel it for that first time. And I did. And as I did, I thought, I want the world for you. And I want you to just always feel as though everything is within your grasp and that whatever you want to do, you can do. And whoever you want to become, you can become. And, the world is literally your oyster. Um, and I thought to myself, well, who are their role models? Because that's how we learn as children. Everything is through role modeling. Um, and I was like, my God, who are they? Who is my role model when I think about things like that? How am I living a life that says everything is possible for me? And I realized that I wasn't. I was living a life that I thought I should be living because it was the norm and it was expected. And I went right back to, okay, well, what do I want to do? Who do I want to
mm,
become? How do I want to reinvent my life in a way that is really fulfilling and on my own terms? Um, and so I did. And I think that was the moment that I committed to self-leadership, you know. But I was inspired by my kids. So I think there are moments when we all choose to be the leader in our own lives. And whether or not that is inspirational for somebody else and helps them move on to their journey, um, or, maybe even challenges them to think about how they would like to do that. And upon that self-reflection, eventually when they're ready, they'll take that step. Um, so yeah, it's a big answer.
mm. I love that. I love that, though. What a great answer. I love that you started with walking your walk and talking your talk.
Mm,
Like, yes. And then that you are doing it not just for yourself, but your children. So powerful. I think so many
yeah,
people can relate to that. I'm like, yes, I relate.
yeah,
I think
absolutely. And I think,
you have two boys as well, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's so important for our boys to see, powerful
yeah.
mothers that are being
Mhm.
loving, caring, kind moms, but
Yeah.
are also, a little kick-ass doing some amazing
Yeah.
work in the world.
Yeah, I do think that, I really do. I think it's so important, role models of all shapes and sizes and decisions and missions and visions and values. You don't have to agree with somebody's vision and journey and mission to be impressed that they're grasping what matters to them, and taking a stand and really living life in a way that is full.
Yeah,
It's not always easy. It never is actually, especially when you self-lead. But I think it is, for me, it's a fundamental of life now. I couldn't have it any other way.
exactly. Same, same. And the respect and the honor that you get from, your boys as well as you're leading the life as a
Mm,
leader
yeah,
is valuable. It's modeling that for them.
yeah,
And yeah, wow. See, we're changing the world in our family structure by being
absolutely.
by being who we are.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. I love your
yeah.
answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, big question. What does old paradigm leadership mean to you?
Oh, well, I think I said this in the beginning, and it's that title honorary. It's kind of rooted in hierarchy. We've always looked at leaders as people that we have to be answerable to. If you look at the military, if you look at schools, there's this, system of the leader being the person at the top that gives the orders. They have a certain amount of control and you, a certain amount of power bestowed upon them as opposed to um, having power with other people and controlling it collectively or intentionally as opposed to suppressively. And I think that old style of leadership has a sense of scarcity and competition. You
Mm.
know, there's some beliefs in there, I think, around success coming from pushing harder and having to do more and fitting into conformity and predefined structures rather than, encouraging that sense of uniqueness within ourselves. Um, and so I think there's a lot of expectations around that. And I'll give you an example, which was, again, on my journey. I remember I was in my early 20s and I had been at the organization I was working at for a couple of years. I really enjoyed it, and boy, did I want to work my way up. I was very in awe of, the leadership titles and the structures and the responsibility that the management got. And I applied for a job and I was made a senior business manager within that team. And so all of a sudden I'd been promoted to early 20s into this senior leadership role where the majority of my staff were twice my age. And I was supposed to be their leader, although my title was manager. And there's a very big difference between managing and leading. And I had no exposure apart from the role models that I'd seen and the stereotypes of what this old system of hierarchy and management and leadership was. And so, I thought I'd been promoted on the basis that, I'd answered all these questions, I'd explained how I would do things and why I would do them, and they chose me because I gave the best answers and therefore I was right. And so when I took on this role of manager, um, I led or rather managed my team on that predefined expectation of I'm the boss, I know best, because that's why I'm in that role. And we were put on a coaching course, the whole senior leadership team. And it was wonderful. And that was my first experience of coaching. And boy, did I fall in love. And I learned the difference between management and leadership, because leadership then became apparent to me that, as long as everyone is engaged in reaching a similar goal or the same goal, it doesn't matter how we all journey to get there, as long as we communicate along the way. And there's no wrong way of reaching that goal, as long as we all have similar values and we're all engaged in the change and we're all working together as a team. It doesn't matter if we, have a different variation of delivery. The fact is we reach that goal as a team. And coaching was the vehicle that helped me understand the management of direction and leadership of, winning hearts and minds to get people on that journey with you, having a shared vision where everybody gets there by a certain time, but in their own unique ways. And as a result, they've learned what they've needed to on that journey, and we're all stronger and wiser for it. So that to me then started really expanding my consciousness of, management, hierarchy, leadership teams versus new possibilities.
I love that. I love that so much, the distinction between management and leading. And that sounds like it was an initiation into your coaching and your leadership.
Absolutely. It really, really was. And I loved language is always evolving. And I think that's what we have here so much. Leadership is still a powerful term, but the understanding that we attach to it now is so different from what it used to be, which was suppressive and controlling, into more working together and an openness to possibilities. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That was rich. That
Mm,
was potent. What a
yeah.
huge initiation. And so, what does new paradigm leadership mean to you?
Oh, opportunities. So many opportunities. I think, it's all about that heart-led, that being deeply aligned. And, I mentioned competition earlier, and I think now it's all about that, you know, co-creation and cooperation and collaboration. It's that intuition over that rigidity of thinking this is how it has to be because that's the way it's always been done, and purpose over prestige, and creating from that place of authenticity where success is measured not just by that personal achievement, but by that ripple effect of positive impact on others, and not being attached to how people process that. It's saying what you need to say and knowing that it's going to reach the ears of the right people and connect with the right hearts and make the difference that you set your intention to. So it's leadership that embraces that individuality. It celebrates the diverse pathways and encourages others to rise, not by force, but by example, that role modeling that we were talking about earlier. And not looking for that external validation. It's not about that anymore. It's really about that deeper inner connection and knowing that everyone is going to have a level of acceptance without necessarily agreement, because we all have mutual respect and understanding that we're all on our own journeys, you know. And I think that in itself creates a sense of personal power and positioning, which creates that essence of feeling as though you're a leader and having conviction in what it is that you're doing, that I think really then grounds you to that. So yeah, I think that's how that new paradigm leadership is starting to unfold and what it means to me. Mm.
Great answer, which leads right into my next question, which is what
Yeah.
does power mean to you? And I know you kind of just touched upon it, but can you deepen a little more into what power means to you?
Oh, I think it's presence. That's the word that really comes to mind around this. I think it's the ability to stand, in your truth and being unwavering with that. And, I don't like that word unapologetic. We don't have anything to be apologetic for, but, without worry of fear or judgment, you're open and you're receptive, but you are grounded in your truth. There's no one else's truth you can walk or talk or be in. You've just got to feel your own sense of presence, which I guess is that aspect of self mastery, alignment, that ability to influence through embodiment rather than force or expectation, um, knowing yourself so deeply that you don't need or seek any external validation because, your power and your presence and your contentedness comes from within. It's that being comfortable in your own skin, and recognizing that in other people, and being drawn to it, and I think that's what's happening a lot more these days. There's something about people's presence and speaking their truth. Again, you don't have to be completely in alignment with everyone else's mission, but you have that mutual understanding that you've all gone through some stuff and you've done a certain amount of internal work and you are on this self-mastery journey. And there's a level of respect for owning that and having, yeah, taken that on board and embraced it. So yeah, I think, power has many different connotations and everyone hears and senses through their own level of experiences. But when I think of power now, I feel that sense of presence. Hmm. Yeah.
I love that answer so much. And I love that you also don't like the word unapologetic,
No.
because there was a time that I liked it for the reasons that you're talking about, of
Mm.
not caring what other people think and, doing what you need to do or say or be. Like, that's really important, right? I keep
Yeah.
thinking Mel Robbins, let them, I love that. I love Mel Robbins. But at the same time, like, I don't like the unapologetic aspect, because sometimes we need to apologize. I think it's really important to admit when you're wrong.
Oh God, yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
think that is so important, admitting when you're wrong. And I think that is a great sign of leadership because, I remember one of the biggest things with a lot of business owners is they're frightened to commit to their voice because as they grow and they know more, their voice changes, their messaging changes, their opinions about things changes. And I'm the first one to hold my hand up right now and say, what I say here today may well change by tomorrow on the basis that I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and my opinions are not fixed, and nor should they be, because that I think is when you try and justify, change people's opinions, force your thoughts onto others and get them to understand you because that's really important. Whereas it's not now, in the sense that I just need to understand myself and understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, why I am moving the way that I'm moving, why I'm impacted by something or not impacted by something, and so if I feel that something is wrong in the future or in the moment, I'm not too big to say, gosh, I got that wrong. Actually, it's one of the best things you can do because getting something wrong is the biggest learning that is available to you. And, we see it as a negative thing instead of a positive thing. Um,
Exactly. And, I love it. I actually love it when a powerful leader admits that they're wrong and has
yeah,
humility, because then I trust them.
yes, absolutely. There's nothing wrong in failing, you know. Yeah, I watched actually one of the most, you were talking about Mel Robbins, one of the really, really interesting things that I saw about Spanx owner, previous owner Sarah Berkeley, was a tip that she was sharing that her family did. And I probably shared this with you years ago, but it really, really impacted me because at her family table at dinner time, they would always share their failures for the day. And she, didn't realize that was not normal, that celebrating your failures was not the done thing. But do you know what it did for her? It meant that she wasn't afraid to fail ever.
Wow. That's
Because
amazing.
isn't it? You just and look at all the failures that she had with Spanx before she did it, but it built within her, well, I'm not afraid to fail, so I just get up and try again tomorrow. You know? And it's that again, it's the way that you attach meaning to communication that really changes the game around things, you know? Um, and yeah, I love that. So we did that at home with my boys. We talk
Oh,
about our failures and I talk about mine, and it's awesome. It's really, really good
I'm totally
because
going to start doing that. I'm going to do
how did we
that.
not learn from it? Yeah. It's just one of the most profound ways of changing things. And I love that. I love it. So yeah.
Yeah, and it teaches humility, and it teaches that it's okay. Because, it's true that the most successful people have failed a lot and they just kept
Absolutely.
going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would make a differentiation there around, we think about leadership, and with everything that's going on in the world right now, we think about politicians. And I think there's a reason they're not called leaders as much as politicians.
Mm.
They're in their own category with their own ways of working because you'll never hear them apologize for things.
Allison, I just got full body chills because
Yeah.
what you just said was so important.
Hmm.
Like my consciousness has just awakened
Good.
because I didn't realize you're right. Politicians are not
Hmm.
called leaders, but I
Hmm.
have always made the association that politicians are leaders. Isn't
Hmm.
that interesting that we've,
Yep.
put them together, but actually politicians are politicians.
Yep. And it's
Leaders
a
are
very
leaders.
different game. Very different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bam. That was good.
Yeah. Good.
Aha
It's true.
moment.
When you start questioning these things and you think, what is the meaning attached to that word or that communication or that, interpretation, you do see it differently. And it does all of a sudden make you realize, oh, okay, there are different rules of the games in these ways. So, choosing the word leadership, I think, is very profound because it's definitely evolving, whereas I don't think the word politician will.
True that.
Anyway, segue.
Oh no, that was a huge pearl of wisdom right there.
Mm,
I think that's going to land for a lot of people. And actually, if you would write something up that I can put on an Instagram message and put your name under it, because I think it's that good about that. I really think that's
yeah.
really good. I'll put your picture and your little message with your name under it and post it once I
Oh,
start. Yes. Oh my God, it's so good. So good. It's
good.
so true.
It
So
is true.
true. And I've
Yeah.
never thought of that as separate.
Mm,
I've always put it together. And
yeah.
and part of like the Awaken the New Feminine Paradigm is like, how can we reclaim what leadership really means? Well, boom, because my next question, you keep
Mm.
answering the questions I have before
Oh,
I ask
sorry.
them. It's okay. It's
It's just
okay.
how it's meant to flow.
I know you're an intuitive new thought leader, so of course that's what you're doing. Um, so, what does awakening the new feminine
Mm.
paradigm mean to you? And I know you've kind of touched upon that already, but like when you just hear the words awaken the new
Yeah.
feminine paradigm, what
Mm.
emerges for you?
What emerges? Well, I just sat back and I noticed that, and I just obviously relaxed into that space. So, it's curious because it allows people to connect to it in their own way. And I think it means it's about stepping into a way of leading and creating and being that honors this sense of intuition and connection and collective growth. I think it's not a solo journey as much as it's that recognition that we are all on this together. So it's the awareness of dissolving those outdated structures of, leadership that don't really serve us and replacing them with models of, wholeness and alignment and conscious impact. Um, and I think a lot more people are waking up to this, questioning certain things and getting a lot more curious about it. And I think, that feminine paradigm piece is about embracing that wisdom of the feminine, but knowing that you have access to your masculine energy too within that. You're not just one or the other, you are both, but there's less force with the feminine, and awakening that gentleness that allows you to lead from that place of being in balance and purposeful and that deep inner connection, I guess, that really speaks to me about this, and I see that a lot in people now. I recognize that. And there's that insight that people are having, from this hustle culture, which is the old way of operating, into this new way of much more observation and ease and flow and curiosity, and able to take your time to adjust and align and then move forward, having collected the qualities that you need to self-lead again, you know? Um, so I think it's an individual journey, and really that deep introspection. And I think that is really what that means to me right now.
Beautiful. Well said. So true, isn't it? I love that you notice that your whole body relaxed as
Yeah.
you, yeah, yeah.
It was like, oh, so like a deep sigh of just peace, It's that, yeah, that reconnection with self, and being able to see the beauty in the ease. Mm.
Being a human being instead of a human doer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Wonderful slogan to start with, wasn't it? Yeah.
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 Thank you. Beautiful. Well said. I couldn't agree more. That's why
Good.
it's taking me 2 years to get this leadership summit
Yeah.
published, because I decided that I have to walk my walk and talk my talk and
Mm.
take care of myself through the
Yeah.
journey and the process, and not push, but be in the divine flow.
Yeah.
Mm,
And everything else is moving around you whilst it matches that energy that you're connecting to, you
true.
know, getting everything in the right space at the right time. Yeah. Mm.
Mm. Yeah, there was an astrologer on the call that I was in yesterday, and she was talking about, I don't do astrology myself, so I can't remember all the things that she said, but was it the moon in Taurus? And anyway, she gave us a reading of what astrologically is going
Mm.
on. And it was a big aha moment for me, because I was like, oh, that's why the summit is being published now. It's exactly in astrological prediction
Alignment.
alignment. And I
Perfect.
told her that. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So,
But lovely
yes,
confirmation.
yes, it
Yeah.
was it was a cosmic confirmation for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I love being able to see those more and more. They are happening more and more when you awaken this way,
Yes.
being and thinking and feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, we call them cledons or synchronicities or
Yeah.
omens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, whew, okay, we're in alignment. Exactly
Yeah.
where
It's
we're meant to
good.
be.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I love getting confirmation. So my next question for you is,
Mhm.
who are your favorite leaders? Who lights you up?
Who lights me up? Great question. Do you know, I'm going to say my husband and my kids.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And, the reason I say that is because I'm with them all the time. So I see them all the time. But I get to see, since there's been a lot of working from home, I get to see my husband in his element of being, in his professional space. And I get to observe how he steps into that energy and how he communicates differently and how he's thoughtful of his words. And then I get to see the outside of that, where he's the unraveling of how that came to be his choices, and what impact and fallout, that ripple effect from owning his choices and his communication and his decisions, the ripple effect that then occurs as a result of that on him, not just on everybody else. And there's beauty in that, and I love the fact that I get to see those two parts of him, and I can observe and appreciate them, and it's sexy as hell, but I love it. It's amazing. And that leadership quality of his evolution over the time that we've been together is really outstanding, the work that he has done. And I think there the duality of that masculine expectation of do, and versus hang on a second, let's do, but let's get this right. Let's, let's make sure we're doing it all for the right reasons and that we're all on the same journey and we're all communicating in the same way and we understand what that communication is. And I love that. And the reason I say my kids is because there is a sense of purity in them before they have all this conditioning in the world. You
Mm.
know, I learned so much from being with them and conversing with them and all those things that when I was their age I can look back on and go, well, this used to bother me, and yet I see in them that it's not there, or it isn't in the same way, it isn't processed in the same way. And so I love that. And the fact that they are so brave and so courageous, these little people, to go out into this big world where, you know, they do have these hierarchical institutions that they have to go into and be a part of. And, my two really do stand up for what matters to them. And they share with us, my husband and I, about what isn't feeling in alignment for them and what they're struggling with in terms of directions that they are given. And, my husband and I will have the conversation with them and we will fight for them. We'll be in their corner. And a great example, and I'm so proud of this, Schamet, and I know you'll be like, yes. So my little boy went into school and he was at a new school and he had a new teacher, and his new teacher was, a little bit of an older generation to my husband and I, and every day at playtime he would say, ladies first, ladies first.
Aw, yay.
And I love that. I love that. But my little boy, he was like, why is it always ladies first? Because why do the boys not sometimes get to go first? Are we not,
Mm.
are we not as good as the girls? Are we
Wow.
not seen to be, as respected as the girls? Are we, is it always fair that they get to go first? And I was like, this is a great point. And my husband said, in work these days, diversity, equality, it's not just about, cultures and heritages. It's also about men and women. And, if he sees this as unfair, we need to have that conversation and find out why so that he can understand it. Because he's not going to say in the olden days it was a sign of respect. Because nowadays he's like, well, why are we not respected in the same way? And we had this conversation with the teacher, my husband and I, and said, hey, look, Liam's really struggling with this and it's really affecting his ability to feel included, and he's feeling very strongly that all the boys are also not always allowed to go first. And the teacher was like, I actually don't have an answer other than it's just how we've always spoken and what we've always said. And it was a sign of respect. And I said, true, but Liam's asking if the boys are respected in the same way. And, we're asking the question because we don't know. And he said, I don't know either. He said, you know what? I'm going to let the boys go out first today. And I said, that will change
Wow.
his world, change his world. And so today he was like, you know, boys get to go out first at playtime. And Liam was just like, wow, from one question, one conversation, because he felt hurt and he misunderstood and he didn't have the history to call on to understand where this came from. And then he asked his mum and dad to fight for him. And we did, not fight in the sense of the word, but ask that really challenging question that he felt he wouldn't be heard about. And the teacher took it on board and said, I don't have an answer and I will make a difference.
Wow.
Huge, huge difference. And that is leadership. That is asking the questions that say, this doesn't feel right to me. I can't feel the alignment. I don't
Mm.
understand. And I'm going to ask because this just seems to be the natural way that people are doing things. But if I don't get it, then I can't agree to it.
I love that. And how old is he?
He is 9.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's true, huh? I don't know. I don't know where it came from either.
Mm.
It's one of those
Yeah.
things that we've just always like accepted as gentlemen,
Gentlemen. Yeah.
treating women
Yeah.
with
With
respect and
respect.
honor. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if originally, and I'm just making this up, but
Mm.
maybe originally when women didn't have equality,
Mm.
it was kind of a way of men
A gesture.
acquiescing, a
Yeah.
gesture of
Gesture of mutuality,
you can't
respect.
vote, you can't do
Yeah.
this, you can't do that, but we're
Yeah.
going to let you go first out I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but I just
Yeah.
wonder
Yeah.
if that's an interesting
Mm.
question. I'm going to have to get to the bottom of it now.
And this was where my husband had said, he said, in workplaces these days, especially with younger girls in the workplace, he said, they don't like it when you open the door for them. It's very archaic, and they feel um, different, and a couple of people have said in the offices before, no, don't do that. So it is really, really interesting. Again, if we're not in those spaces experiencing those things, it's completely alien to us. But if we have these conversations and you don't just have a surface level chat, then it's profound what comes out from that. And I love that. So yeah, I have to say that my husband, in terms of personal evolution, and my kids in terms of their courage and curiosity, um, and standing up for what doesn't feel right.
Love
I
that.
love that. I really love that. So yeah,
Well,
profound, not, but
that is
meaningful for me.
definitely, yeah, and that's definitely because you model
Mm,
leadership in your own life, then
mm,
that has empowered your children to ask the questions as well. So this is another reason why I think it's so important to awaken our leadership within, because then it has the ripple effect
yeah, yeah.
into, our families, right? And then into our communities. And so
Absolutely. It
good on
starts
your
at
son. He's a young leader.
Oh, yeah, he really, really is. It's quite funny actually, because if he heard any of these conversations, he'd be like, "Oh, Mum, she's trying to be all wise and mystical." I'm like, I'm just speaking. I'm talking about things that really mean something to me." And yet he's like, "Oh, you've gone into that whole mystical wise thing again, Mum. Just, stop it." You have a place, Mum, and it's just, it's here. So I can't wait to see how all of this evolves for him and for us with our relationship and our learnings and our conversations as the years go by. Maybe one
He's
day he'll look at,
young, but when he's older, you will be, I'm sure of it. You'll be deeping into some very deep and mystical conversations.
I hope
They
so.
kind of have to grow up first, you know.
Yeah, yeah, we're trying.
I love it. I love that. I love that he asked that question. Gosh, that's amazing. That is leadership right there.
It
And
is.
so you already touched upon the qualities of a good leader. Can
I've got,
you kind of focus on your top three leadership qualities that mean the most to you?
yeah. So I said courage. And I think that is a really, really strong one. The willingness to be seen and to stand for something, and to make decisions that align with your truth, even when it's really, really uncomfortable. And I think, a lot of times it is really uncomfortable. Um, so being courageous through that process is so important, to call on that feeling of courage. How can that feeling of courage help you right now? But I'm going to have to say clarity. Have to say clarity. That's the foundation of everything for me. If you don't know yourself and your values and your purpose so deeply, then you cannot be in that space of leadership. It's not about the external expectations. It's really about this internal grit that you bring forward. So getting clarity on what that is and what self-leadership means to you. And it doesn't have to be profound. Profoundness comes from other people's observations and what that means to them. What matters to you is that aha, that this is what really matters to me. doesn't have to be something big and grandiose. It can be something really pure and simple. It's equally as important because that matters to you. So clarity and courage. And then I really think, compassion and empathy is huge. I think understanding that leadership isn't really about you, it's about you in your capacity as service, what you're doing for those that you serve, the impact that you're creating through your presence, your words, and your actions. There's a difference between being maniacal in terms of, this is my path and this is what I'm doing, and, be damned everybody else, to actually you're doing it with the purest of intentions to create the highest and possible good in the world for others, to inspire, to make a difference, to not for validation. It's about that compassion that you hold for others. Other people have a message that is similar or different. Either way, you can see the respect and have compassion with the journey that they're on and what they're undertaking. So I think clarity and courage and compassion are really, they're the top three for me.
I love that. I love that so much because you're a conscious creation coach as well.
Yes.
So you got all the C's going on. And
Yes, I didn't actually even notice that. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
and I met my husband at this Consortium of Cosmic Consciousness warehouse party where all the Burning Man people lived, and so there's
yeah.
something about the C's, the conscious creation, the compassion, the clarity,
Mhm.
and I know that you helped me
Mm.
align to my clarity when I worked with you as a coach. And it really does make a huge difference when you have clarity of purpose.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because you
You
can
know
just
what to take on
carve
board.
through all the,
Yeah.
stuff that doesn't matter and get straight to where you're going
Yeah.
and be on task. So thank you. That was great. I loved it. And
Pleasure.
so I've got the biggest question of all.
Mm.
If you were made leader of the world, what would you do?
Oh, I was the leader of the world. What would I do? Oh, I
Maybe I'll
think
rephrase. Let me rephrase this a little bit. If you were made leader of the world, where would you start? Like, what would your
mm,
plan be to make this world a better place? And, just a kind of a
yeah,
broad overview of,
yeah.
what comes to mind. I know it's a big question, so I'm putting you on the
It's a
spot.
big question. And, I haven't got a whole plan in place, but it's all about people remembering who they are. They've got to come back to themselves and, getting rid of these um, conformity, that's the biggest thing. It's okay to conform to something when it's within alignment within your truth. But oftentimes, we are put into family households. We're born into them, we grow up in them, and we have rules and expectations. And we go into schools and we have, rules and expectations and uniforms. And, there's these are then the rules and the guides that we live by, but we haven't chosen them. We've been given them as guidebooks to tell us how we should behave to make other people's lives easy. And really, that is destroying our ability to know ourselves because we don't get to question, you know, does that align with my values? And so we grow up into the world and we get the job that has the expectations or the college degrees that have, the most power attached to them or the most interest from other people or put us into a label that we feel will give us that sense of hierarchy or ownership or leadership or power. And very few people walk out at the end of their schooling and their college and the institutionalized arenas really with any level of self-awareness about what really matters to them and what they really want to do and what they really want to be and how they really want to project themselves in the world. And I think that is what I would want to start with, really celebrating that uniqueness and that individuality and helping people reconnect to that. And then once we are, then you can start to make change around, where people feel self-empowerment and known. And I think that then makes it a lot easier for us to align ourselves with friends and organizations and charities because it speaks to us. And so there's that, self-selection as opposed to self-expectation. So for me, helping people remember who they truly are and knowing themselves, getting them that clarity in the first place is would be paramount. Yeah. So by tackling that expectation of conformity, I think is powerful.
I love this. And I just had this aha moment of you're already doing all those things.
Mm,
Isn't that wonderful?
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I got full body chills that, it's not like if you were made leader of the world, what would you do? You're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
am. In my way. I am. I am in my way. Oh God, wouldn't it be wonderful to rip that band-aid off and just all of a sudden everyone gets that moment of, hold on a second.
I
It
know.
could be a whole emotional intelligence class in schools would be
Exactly. Mm.
incredible, self-awareness classes, that ability to ask those questions and have powerful questions and get people to really feel their answers. This is what I loved about English at school was you could read a book or a passage of poetry and you were allowed to interpret it in a way that it made you feel. That writer wrote it with their own feelings in mind, but you can only ever take from it from your own experiences and how those words are presented to you. You make meaning from your operating model. And that's what we need to do more of. We really need to understand why we make meaning of things, and it will save us from taking on other people's hurts and triggers and wounds and really start afresh. And I think that's just a huge opportunity for people. So, yeah, I am
Mm.
doing that. I am.
Mm. Well, if you ever decide to run for any kind of political position of power, I will vote for you.
Thank you, but I don't label myself in that politics.
No, oh, sorry. Leadership position. Oh, well, you already
I
are a
hear
leader,
you.
so that's right. It's going to take me a while to kind of untease the.
It's so interesting though, isn't it? Because that has
Mm,
always been one of the places that I'm like, oh, and a lot of people they're like, oh, politics, I couldn't do that. Like, because there's so much disingenuousness around it, you know?
yeah,
Um,
but part of me feeling so passionate about doing this leadership summit is I hope to inspire people to step into political positions of power because if we only have the types of people that are in those political positions of power, then that just makes me kind of afraid. Kind of is an understatement of the century, but
mm,
I think it's important, this is not a political leadership, of course,
yeah,
summit, but, also not to think that all politicians are ill-willed because I think there are some that are really trying very hard to make a difference in this world, and they are the leaders
yeah.
that are in political positions of
And
power.
it is
So,
starting. And I think that's the whole point. Everyone is waking up. And when you have that self-realization and reflection, you know what's for you. You know what you can tolerate and what you can stand and what you can work through. And, having that courage to step into that and stick to your guns and having the compassion around it too, I think is really, really important. And yes, things are changing and they will. I mean, gosh, they've changed already over the last few decades, but
Yeah, a new paradigm of political power would be a great thing, you know. I had
That's the awakening.
I
Yeah.
recently had a teacher at university, and she was amazing.
Hmm.
And she talked about how if you're going to be a good psychologist, then you need to have a political position. And I was like, wow, really? Do I? Like, I've always been on the fence and not wanting to get
Yeah.
involved into politics in any way, shape, or form. No, thank
Yeah.
you. But after hearing her talk for an hour, I was like,
Mm.
huh, she's right. I think I will start understanding things a little bit more. And,
Mm.
that birthing that new paradigm kind of feeling about leadership and politics and positions of power and kind of redefining and not giving up
Yeah.
on where we could go
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hopefully learn from our mistakes.
Yep.
But that's another big topic, right?
Absolutely. I'll wait for your next summit.
Yeah. So, Allison, that was beautiful. I loved every moment of our conversation. Do you have any last and final words of wisdom?
I think you said it earlier, clarity is really the foundation of everything. It's that reconnection with yourself. It's that full body aha understanding. It's that alignment is your success, you know? Trust yourself, your own path, and lead from that place of real deep inner knowing. It doesn't need you to be more of anything. It just needs you to be you. So, you know, know who you are and be that person, and you will inspire so many more people with that presence than you could possibly ever imagine. So, yeah,
Mm,
if you're not going to do
beautiful.
it for you, do it for others. Yeah.
I love that. If you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for others.
Mm.
True. True.
Mm. Because it's
I mean, I did that.
uncomfortable. And
I
when
did
you've
that
got,
with
my
parent.
kids drove. Mm. Yep. Yep.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was like, yeah, I think we've got a lag now, haven't we? But I did that with my kids, when it was really uncomfortable, I had to remember, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I want them to know that it's possible. And the only way they're going to know it's possible if I make it possible. So here we go. Courage. Yeah.
True. So
Yeah.
true, isn't it?
Mm.
I'm a big coffee drinker. Like, I love coffee. I
Yeah.
love it and chocolate. And I gave up coffee when with both of my pregnancies. Like, and I did it for them. And I had to lead myself through
Mhm.
that, coffee addiction. But I was the healthiest I've ever been when I was pregnant with my children because I was doing it for them.
Mm.
And I think that ignites, as a mother, ignites something inside of us. I know my leadership really awoke very strongly in me when I became a mom.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. It creates, there's just something so much more powerful. And that's the thing. If we were able to go, actually, the most important person in our world is us, you know, because again, our kids need us. If we don't look after ourselves in that way, how do we ever expect them to? And so being a role model in that sense of going, actually, this is good for me too, and putting myself first is not selfish, is a new way of thinking and is very uncomfortable. And that in itself is, starting to have that sense of leadership. Um, but it is, if I want success for my kids, if I want them to believe that the world is available to them in any way, in every way, why wouldn't I think that for me? You know, I came first. Why wouldn't I ever have those thoughts about myself? Why wouldn't I desire this for myself? You know? And it is that realization. It's a different level, but we're no less than anyone else. And we should want those things for us too. And it's not selfish. Mm.
Beautifully said. So
Mm.
true. I mean, even when the airplane is crashing, they say to put the
Yeah.
air on yourself first so that you can put it on your children.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, love that. Thank you, Allison. Thank you so much. This conversation has been so rich and potent and powerful and yummy and fun and multidimensional. I loved it. So, do you have any free gifts for the summit participants?
Ooh. Well, you know me, I love meeting people. So I have a clarity call that I have for the participants that if they want to jump online and have a conversation about how I can support them with their business, any queries, if they need to get their clarity on what it is that they're doing in this world, then I'm here for all of that. So that is what I can definitely pass on to all the attendees to book in and have that conversation to really help them hone in on that.
Oh, that's where we began. I had my
I
clarity call with you and I couldn't get enough.
Yeah.
Great.
It's just,
Thank you. That's a beautiful offer. Thank you. Yeah, because those of you that are listening, you will book straight in with Allison and
mm,
meet her personally and have that connection, that clarity, and finding out if it's in alignment to work together is powerful. So thank
yeah.
you.
And they will
Yes.
always walk away with something amazing to get started with regardless, And I think that's the important piece too. Yeah.
Yeah, you certainly came into my life exactly when I needed you. And I remember that clarity call so clearly because I was in Sweden on a walk, I think with the kids and the dog. And I had to kind of pull over for a moment and I was in the forest. And so I had all the trees surrounding me.
Yeah.
And I was going through some struggles.
Mm.
And there was so much clarity from just that short, because we didn't talk long, but
Mm.
it was powerful. It was potent. I went away with an illuminated moment where I could see through what was going on in my life. And I went, oh, yeah, I need to work with Allison.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was great.
It was wonderful. I loved working with
Mhm.
you.
Likewise.
It's so great to get support. Um, yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And get an outside perspective on these things as well, I think is really, really important. Sometimes it's just asking the right questions, and sometimes it's just having somebody else who's not attached to be able to see inside. I always have my own coach because I can't see the things that I can't see because I'm in it, and always having that person to be able to probe and ask those questions really does give you that space for processing and reflection and holding you to make some powerful decisions, which is really important. Mm.
Yes, I know. I remember
Mm.
you not letting me off the hook for anything. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need.
Yeah, yeah.
You're a very good coach. Loved working with you. And tell us what you're up to. What kind of things are you doing? Are there any new classes? Just
Mm.
share
Do
with
you know,
us what's going on in your world.
in my world, I am focusing on me a lot more me, which I'm loving, and giving myself the permission and the space to, awaken that femininity of no push and just presence and being and really defining that. And, giving yourself that space is incredible. And other than that, I am working with some amazing one-to-one clients. So for this year, I chose to strip everything back and just start working with my clients one on one. And I have really, really enjoyed it. It's allowed me to work with people on, a deeper level. And I do love those connections, where I work with somebody for 6 to 12 months and we really get to build that connection and that bond. And I know them so well that it's very easy to be able to understand next steps, and periods of space for implementation, which I know you don't often get on coaching programs. And I leave a lot of time for implementation and processing and reflection time, which again is really, really important, I think, when you're working on bringing your visions into the world. Um, so yeah, so that's what I've been working on, and I've really, really enjoyed it. It's felt so natural and so um, I felt very honored to have that. Um,
Mm.
I'm loving it, really, really loving it, and a beautiful balance between that and motherhood at the moment, you know.
Oh, wonderful. And but you also published a book, didn't you?
Yes, I
Tell
did.
us
I
about
did.
that.
So I published The Conscious You. And I actually don't have a copy to hand at the moment, otherwise I would. But yeah, The Conscious You, it's on Amazon. It's a number one bestseller and won a few awards. And it was actually a beautiful collaboration book because when we were working together, I had the Conscious Creation Business Circle and I had my Master Circle programs as well, which are my group programs for 12 months and 12 weeks. And I loved holding the energy and the space in those groups. And when I wanted to write the book, The Conscious You, it was really about creating that beginning for self reflection and that space of what we've been talking about in terms of really connecting with who am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? What do I feel? You know, really understanding relationships and communication and emotional intelligence. Um, and so I brought some of my clients in to collaborate on the book. And so they took a chapter on their expertise as well and the things that we've been working on together and that they've been learning. And so we created this beautiful collaboration book that takes you and, you know, I one of the reviews in Amazon that somebody had written was like, it's like a spiritual Bible. It's one of those pick up, I need to work on this, take it away, implement it, put it into practice, see how things move and shift and change, reflect on it, and then come back and see what the next chapter has available. It's really a guide to help people live their best lives and really awaken them to what is possible for them and how they can have that clarity and that courage and that self-compassion to begin this beautiful journey of consciously creating the very best life they can. So, yeah, I'm very
Oh,
proud of it.
I'm
Yeah.
proud of you. It's so wonderful. I'll put a link and a picture
Mhm.
of your book below this video.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That would be
you're
wonderful.
welcome.
I'd love people to, you know, read it and share with me. I love it when they share with me what they have interpreted from those words. You know, like I was saying with English earlier, with poems, and, you know, everyone takes from it something that is uniquely for them. And I love that. I love hearing how did that make you feel? What did that bring forth for you? How did that communicate to you? You know, my intention around those communications is to really, really get people thinking and awaken their thoughts. So it's not directive as much as it is inquiring. And yeah, I really love hearing how people process that. So yeah, if you get the book, read it, implement it, and then let me know how you go.
Definitely. Sounds good. Oh, that's what makes you such a great coach. Mm. Thank you
Thank you.
so much for your time, your energy, your expertise, your I just enjoyed this conversation so much, Alison. Thank you for being you and being on this planet and being in my beautiful circle. I'm very blessed.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. I've enjoyed this so much. It's been wonderful.
Mm. Well, for all of you out there, make sure you click on the link below and book a clarity call with this beautiful, beautiful goddess and have her bring some clarity into your life and your direction in your conscious creation of whatever you're bringing into the world. So much love and so many blessings to each and every one of you on your spiritual awakening journey.